Hi, everyone. Welcome back to VCC Talks, the podcast for everything clean transportation. I'm your host, Sher, and I'm back for another episode with our special guest today, Eric Pinzon. Eric serves as co-owner of Electrified Marina in Norfolk, Virginia, the only electrified boat dealership in Virginia, and that I know of personally. Its unique business model inspires clean fuel enthusiasts like myself, and I'm eager to dive into your amazing story. So welcome to the pod.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's exciting stuff. And I drink the Kool-Aid and share it with everybody. So it's nice connecting with like-minded individuals.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So let's dive into the questions real quick. I'm curious about your story before becoming co-owner of Electrified Marina. Could you describe a little bit of your journey to alternative fuels and relevant experiences leading up to your involvement?
Yeah. So growing up, had zero exposure to sustainability, to anything alternative fuels, like no impact on my life at all. And then as I was becoming a mechanic, started learning about energy and energy efficiency. And I remember sitting in automotive trade school and learning that gas engines were 20 to 30% energy efficient. And just in terms of thermal efficiency, and so much is wasted with heat. And it just blew my mind. This is the best we've got. It was just kind of mind boggling to me. And then I learned electric motors are 80 to 90% efficient. And now we're pushing 95% efficiency. And I just remember being in trade school. I mean, I was 19 years old and it's just like, man, this is pretty abysmal. We've been at gas engines for 100 years now. And this is all we've got. Talk about innovation or lack thereof. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's almost embarrassing. And then I got into a scholarship program through BMW and did 9 months of BMW school. And I remember sitting in this class for hybrids and they're bragging about their new hybrids. And it was the latest and greatest thing. And this was in probably 2008, 2009. And they had a 7 Series hybrid and an X6 hybrid. And it was like their biggest, heaviest vehicles. They're bragging about the horsepower and the torque and what it did for 0 to 60 time. And they're like, any questions? And I was like, yeah, like what did it do for miles per gallon? What are we doing here? And I remember it's something abysmal. It went from 18 to 20 miles to the gallon. And it's like, you guys are excited about this? Like, this is garbage. You're claiming innovation here. And on that same trip, I was driving from Virginia to Jersey for the training. And on my way back, I stopped by Washington, D.C. I had a friend working for Tesla and he'd been telling me about Tesla for a year or two. And I was a big gearhead. I mean, my first car was a Mustang. I had a Z28 Camaro, tons of lifted trucks, and just through and through, just a gearhead. And I had like a 500 horsepower BMW at the time. And I remember getting there, riding in this Tesla Roadster, and it just blew my mind. The instant torque kind of ruined me. And it's like, man, BMW is claiming to be innovative. And I've got all my friends with muscle cars and fast cars. Nobody knows what they're doing other than this company, Tesla. And this was back in 2011. So this was before the Model S was out, way before the Model 3 was out. Like nobody knew about this company. They had 5 locations in the entire country. And so I got exposure to that. And after that, I remember going back to my job at BMW. I was a very well-paid master technician at a dealership, one of the top techs, making 6 figures at 21 years old, doing very well in life. And I just lost the passion for it. And I was like the biggest Kool-Aid drinker of BMWs. I was restoring them on the side, as big of a fanboy as it gets. And I remember going back after that, and it's like, this company doesn't know what they're doing. And what am I doing here? And after that, like I sent my buddy my resume and they weren't paying anything for salaries. And I had to turn down like 2 or 3 different positions with them. Finally, they reached back out and was, hey, you got a job at Tesla in San Diego. We remember that you had family there. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'll take a fat pay cut to come work for you guys and throw a Hail Mary that the stock options would turn into something. And while I was at Tesla, I just drank even more of the Kool-Aid and kind of got between that and having a kid, it just kind of shocked me and opened my eyes a little bit about how much we're wrecking this world. It was like pretty sad. A couple documentaries later, you look at like ocean temperatures, acidity levels, and just pollution and everything else. And we started doing litter cleanups. I mean, my daughter at 2, 3 years old was walking around picking up trash with us, whether it was trail cleanups or beach cleanups. I started organizing the local electric car club and just trying to educate people and spread awareness. And it's unfortunate because there's so much greenwashing that goes on out there that most people think, oh, drive electric, you're going to save the world. And it's like, really, you would have more of an impact if you just ate less meat. Or there's other things you could do that would have more of an impact. But that's the easier things. Most people don't want to have big changes in their life. They're not willing to sacrifice much or compromise much. But there's so many, I try to not get into the weeds too much of it and just tell people to do better. Like just improve a little bit, whether it's single-use plastics or pick up in terms of littering, driving electric, cutting out meat. It's simple things like putting a heat pump in your house. Very little things can go a long way in terms of energy conservation. But it's hard not to get jaded and realize how many people just don't care. Now we're selling electric boats and it's like, We're trying to convince people to not pollute the water they're trying to enjoy. You're literally dumping exhaust in the water, polluting it as you're out there trying to enjoy it with your family. And it's mind-boggling how hard it is to get this point across, but most people don't care. It's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think what you said about education is really key. If everybody just did a little bit more in terms of their contribution to the wildlife, in terms of their contribution to the environment, the world would be a lot better and it would be a much better place. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of, as much as Electrified Marina is an investment, it's also a passion project. And the amount of people we get out on the water is huge. I mean, we got it was like 4,000 people out on the water last year. And a lot of that was younger kids and underprivileged youth. And it's like, whether it's for litter cleanups or just exposure, like, hey, this is your backyard. If we could get everyone out there to realize how beautiful this place is, it's like maybe they would care just a little bit more.
yeah, I totally agree. Well, your passion about this is all very refreshing But moving on to the next question, how have some of your previous pursuits, and I think we already covered this a little bit, but particularly as your background as a mechanical technician, informed your current view on alternative fuels?
It's when you look at an engine and a transmission and the complexity of it, and you realize like there's thousands of moving parts that need perfect tolerances and perfect lubrication, where you have catastrophic failure. And then you see an electric motor. And it's like there's very, very few moving parts. You've got like a stator, a rotor, some windings, and electricity flows through into magnetic fields. And it is the simplest thing. And you might have a gear reduction depending on your install and like what your RPMs are and stuff. But the amount of moving parts is so slim. And then you get in the capitalistic side of things and realize that they need all of these moving parts and tolerances. And they need all that stuff to break to maintain this dealership model of repairs and maintenance to sell you stuff. Whether it's boats or cars, it still applies. And I try to be careful walking the line about clean fuels and alternative fuels. And because electric isn't going to solve everything, it doesn't make sense in every single application. And we're very cognizant of that. And we try to be brutally honest of what that looks like in terms of propulsion. And sometimes, as long as there is an improvement, it's a step in the right direction, whether it's propane or natural gas, or, there's some applications that are super extreme that electric doesn't make sense, or it doesn't with current tech in terms of the battery technology. So just kind of the exposure on the mechanical side, rebuilding engines and transmissions all the time when I was at BMW, and realizing engines are just pretty terrible in terms of maintenance and repairs and longevity. And it's just, there's a lot to it. And then the simplicity of electric motors is it beats all of the downsides. It's the solution to all the downsides. We just need to solve energy density, but that's getting a little bit better every year. Obviously, solid state batteries or something will solve that. And the propane or natural gas stuff makes sense for the heavier duty applications with a central filling point, like trash trucks or delivery trucks, last mile delivery type stuff. And it's an improvement. Anything that's a step in the right direction is better. I mean, even if we've got an electric powertrain powered completely by the US grid right now, it's going to be a lot cleaner than powering it by gasoline. And people don't see the downsides to gasoline. They only see the upsides. And they see that, clean, cheap fuel that comes out of the dispenser instantly for very little money. They don't see the extraction or, the drilling or the hazards there, or the energy that goes into processing it or anything. They don't see any of that, or the subsidies, the billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, you could say, in subsidies that big oil has gotten over the last few decades. And they're upset over a little bit of money going towards electric car consumers. It's kind of laughable. But yeah, just the exposure on the mechanical side of things in terms of complexity and the maintenance, and getting exposure to that headache and nightmare that it is. And then actually being a mechanic for Tesla technician, we spent most of our time on our laptops. The powertrains were pretty solid. Now with higher mileage cars in the hundreds of thousands of miles, they're replacing more powertrains now. But the reliability and simplicity is just, when you get exposure on that level, it's really eye-opening.
Yeah, I totally agree. At VCC, we really champion the use of all alternative fuels. And so I really appreciate you saying that as well. And in terms of cost savings, a lot of people misunderstand or misinterpret the cost savings when it comes to electric vehicles. Like, they oftentimes think that gas vehicles are more cost effective, when in reality, that's just not the case. So there are a lot of conceptions going around. That is a good transition into our next question, which is, being the nation's only fully electrified watercraft dealer, Electrified Marina has a very unique business model, as I said earlier. And could you just share a little bit more about Electrified Marina's development and your personal future business goals?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how it all came about. I met a business partner as crazy as I was. So I spent 9 years at Tesla. She did 10 years at SpaceX. So both of us are equally crazy, headstrong, nothing you can tell us that we won't try and solve. We will do logistical gymnastics to solve problems where most people would have given up 10 steps ago. We will move mountains. You could tell me right now that we're going to do a big event in 3 weeks, even 2 weeks across the country, and I would get everything in place. And most of it would be my team, but we can solve almost anything. I kind of love how headstrong we are, but that can also be a detriment. But when I met this business partner, we were planning to invest in real estate together. And she ended up finding this marina that I'm at now. It was a small 16 slip marina. It was a little overpriced. We were trying to figure out how we can make it afford itself in terms of an investment point. Initially, we wanted to do houseboats. The city of Norfolk wasn't okay with it. And then she said, what if we did a boat rental business? And I was like, I am not interested in gas boats. I've seen that headache. No thanks. She's like, no. Let's look into electric boats. I've heard of them before. Let's see what they're all about. And we went down this rabbit hole of doing homework, and we found Vision Marine out of Canada. They make these little cocktail boats, little picnic boats. And there was a couple rental operations already in the rest of the country. And Vision Marine actually had their own in Newport Beach, California, with 30 boats in the water, just absolutely printing money. And it's just, you go out for a cocktail cruise, sunset cruise, brunch. You're just cruising around for 2 hours at low speeds. And it's like, there's no maintenance to the batteries and motors. You're going to have some wear and tear on the rest of the boat. But if we can charge as much as the pontoon, charge the same price, and our operating costs are 90% less, it's a no-brainer. And then the light bulb went off, and it's like, what if we sold them? And like, we really had to take a step back and think, it's like, why is nobody doing this? Why are we the first ones coming about this? And we found this next company, Shore, who's out of Sweden, who was kind of first to market in terms of the higher speed electric boat space. We became a dealer for them. And we realized that most people either aren't forward thinking enough, they're not risky enough, or they don't have the capital, because you have to have all three. You've got to be absolutely crazy to jump in and be first to market. And then you've got to have a lot of money to do it. We've spent a few $100,000 learning what not to do, because we're not just going to a boat show and selling a boat. 99.9% of people going to a boat show aren't our target demographic. 1/3 of our boat buyers are first-time boat owners. It's kind of crazy. And these people aren't interested in boats because of the headache, whether it's bust out another 1,000 or best day is when they buy and sell the boat. 90% of that is revolved around the gas engine and the headaches and the fuel problems and all these nuances that come with it. And electric solves those. And we say it makes sense where it makes sense, but the average pleasure boater could switch to electric with zero compromise. Most people are going 20, 30 miles. They hang out in this localized area, and they're going to, to this sandbar, to this restaurant, to this beach, but it's all localized right nearby. And it's very relatable to electric cars. Everyone thinks they need 500, 600, 700 miles, and they're driving 30 to 40 miles a day. And they've got electricity where they park their cars. I think it's like 60% of America could have overnight parking and off-street parking with charging nearby. Most marinas have electricity. Most docks have electricity. And like, obviously the DC fast charging on the water is another conversation, but most pleasure boaters could switch to electric tomorrow with minimal compromise. Obviously the cost is higher right now, but as economies of scale get there and we make some progress with volume and production, that'll come down as well. But it's very much finding the right tool for the job. And there's times we won't sell somebody a boat. If someone wants to go 100 miles at 30 miles an hour, unless they've got $1 million to throw down, there is no boats that fit that. And we are brutally honest with expectations, because right now with where we're at, we're electric cars circa 2010. There's a handful of them out there. They're a little expensive. And so we are brutally honest with setting that expectation, because we don't want somebody buying one of these and upset, or getting stranded somewhere because they thought the boat could make it and the limited range wasn't enough for them. So we go through a pretty in-depth discovery with every client that comes our way to make sure it's a good fit, because we don't want any detractors out there for the brand. We can't afford it right now with how limited our customers are. We need everybody to be advocates. So it's kind of an interesting approach right now, but we're getting to the point now where we're getting requests from all around the country and even the world for us to showcase our boats. We've got the largest demo fleet of electric boats probably in the world, I would say, and most diverse. We've got a dozen boats out there right now from all different manufacturers, from $20,000 to $300,000 and everything in between. And so there's nobody else out there doing it in terms of how hard we're investing and focusing on it. There's other dealers that just so happen to carry an electric boat. They might have sold one last year, but nobody is 100% focused like we are. And we need more people out there to do it, because I can't take over the country as much as I'd love to, and it'd be cool, but that is more headache and stress that I want to take on. And on the other side of that, we're getting ready to do some capital raising right now to potentially expand to the top 10 boating markets in the country, because we need that level of exposure, because most dealerships out there aren't incentivized to sell electric boats. Just like automotive, these guys are making their overhead from service and repairs and maintenance. And so most boat dealerships, their entire business model is structured to make money on service. So electric boats are kind of kryptonite. It's like death by a thousand cuts, because that many more boats out there, they won't need as much repairs and maintenance and service. So it's kind of hard for a current boat dealer to shift their entire business model and start focusing on electric boats. So it takes that startup guy that's going to jump into it. And so we're working on licensing contracts and expanding to different cities. And yeah, so we're on the beginning of that journey right now in terms of national expansion.
That's incredible. What a story.
Yeah, it'll be good when it's done. It's chaos right now. It literally controlled chaos. And we're very much in the scaling headaches of a business. So we're looking forward to the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's brutal right now.
Definitely. Well, the work you're doing is incredible. And I guess that just leads me to my next question is, and you sort of already touched on this, but what does sustainability look like for your business? You guys are sort of heading up this national change, and I'm just wondering where your head's at with how that's going to impact other jurisdictions, other cities.
I mean, there's a couple ways to take that conversation. Internal to the business, everything we do has a sustainable mindset. If literally when we do door hangers or send out postcard mailers, we spend twice as much. So we're not just wasting paper. We send out these postcards that have wildflower seeds embedded into the mailers, just so we're not creating more waste. And it says on the bottom of this thing, hey, even if you're not interested in this, just throw it on the side of the road somewhere and some wildflowers are going to grow from it. So it's anything we do is sustainably minded. We tow with electric as often as we can, and anything we do is sustainably focused. I will judge my employees if they show up with single-use plastics. Everybody is issued water canteens and coffee canteens, and it's just do better. Literally, that's all it is. And I don't expect all my employees to switch and, buy an electric car and eliminate single-use plastics tomorrow. But you've got to make progress, or you don't have a core value fit for this team. And I mean, we try and express that everywhere we go with marinas. And we didn't talk about it yet, but we own a bigger marina called Willoughby. And we bought this marina right at the same time we started this business. And we weren't searching for it. It was just opportunity. But between this and the other marina, I literally wiped out my life savings to jump into these two endeavors. And that marina was in disrepair. And as we're fixing it up, we went to a couple conferences to look and see what everybody's doing in the sustainability space. And it's like, if I'm redoing my docks, I want to do them the most sustainable way possible. If I'm redoing all my slips, putting in new pilings, if I'm going to cover my slips, why wouldn't I cover those in bifacial solar panels? If I'm covering my slips, why wouldn't I capture the rainwater on it? And nobody in the country is doing it. And so last fall, I went to Monaco for this smart and sustainable marina conference to kind of present our ideas and our goals for this marina. And it's just crazy. These very simple things of capturing rainwater at a marina just doesn't exist. And these people that are getting Clean Marina Award, it's like, oh, you recycle, you put an LED bulb. That would have been exciting 10 years ago. This is 2025. What are you guys doing? And so we've got this marina project that we're going to do, and we're going to document every step of the process and show how to rebuild a marina sustainably, and then give away this guidebook for free to make it easier for people. Hey, we covered our slips in solar. Because they're premium covered slips, now we can charge more for them, but this is what it's doing for our electricity costs. This is what our ROI looks like, and kind of give a guidebook so other people can follow in our path. Because just capturing rainwater, it's like a $4,000 a month water bill. It's outrageous, but almost half of that is people washing boats. They don't need clean, purified, potable water to wash a boat. You could very much do that with rainwater or gray water. And we're going to capture that so they can utilize it, but it's also going to save us money. So there's an ROI factor to put into all of these. It's just like a passive building, like a solar passive building where you've got, windows the right dimensions, overhangs the right dimensions, and you might angle the building a little bit and rotate it so that it's faced efficiently towards the sun. But nobody thinks about that stuff. Everyone's just quick, dirty, and as fast as possible and as cheap as possible. And so we kind of want to express, there's been like one sustainable marina built in the US, and it was down in San Diego. They did a LEED gold, but it was like 15 years ago, and they're not pursuing anything else since then. So we just kind of want to showcase on how you can do things sustainably minded. It's very much an educational approach as opposed to forced and belittling, because so many people get this greenwashing forced down their throat everywhere they step. And so we very much try to just, hey, We're not telling you to turn into, this tree hugging hippie tomorrow. But if you're doing something, can you tweak it a little bit or use a different material, whether it's for a piling or decking? Can you do something? If you're putting in pedestals, put meters on the electricity and track it, and put monitors for leak detection on the water. So there's a lot of little things that can be done at marinas or in the boat business that can do a lot in terms of a shift towards sustainability. Because I would say it's probably one of the worst businesses out there in terms of environmental waste and consumption. It's hard to say that it's for the good because it's purely for entertainment. Unless it's a work boat or a fishing boat that has some beneficial byproduct other than enjoyment, you're doing it for pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really about that the technology doesn't exist, like you said. It's just about application, education, and implementation.
Right. That's it. And you have to be aware and open to learning about it before you'll even get there. But most people are ignorant and don't want to educate themselves. So we're trying to change that. And we do that by butts and seats. And we try and get as many people out on these boats. When I was headstrong in the electric car space and we were doing a lot of public education events, giving rides was the best thing we could do. And we do it in boats now. As long as you can recognize after this conversation and experience, as long as you could recognize that there's a place for this, that's a win in my book.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you were talking a little bit about the demos there that you guys have been doing. So, looking back at your experiences, is there a particular key initiative or project that you started that has made you especially proud?
We do a lot of litter cleanups. And actually, funny enough, as we're recording this, there's a Virginia Marine Debris Summit going on that's focused on microplastics and pollution and litter cleanup and everything in our waterways. But we use our boats for those. I literally give them away for free. And I don't know how much money it's costed us and how much time and energy. But anytime somebody approaches us with a litter cleanup request, it's yes, and how many boats do you need? And I'm staffing all of that. Most of my employees aren't volunteering for that. I've got some that will, but most of them need to be paid. And so we incur that cost because it's for the greater good. So that a lot of the youth that we've gotten out on boats has been pretty awesome, and just getting them that exposure. People in the boating world are kind of jaded. There's a lot of people out there that don't have money, that don't have access to boats. I didn't get on boats growing up as a kid. I was like 18 years old when I first got on a boat, and it was the crappiest little John boat that had a leak. And I remember us taking the 12-volt battery from my buddy's truck to power the boat. And it was like a little trolling motor is what we used to get around. But it was the coolest thing. And so getting people out there on the water, getting exposure to it, it definitely fills up my cup in terms of the passion. Also, on the other side of things, there's a lot of college programs. One's called Promoting Electric Propulsion. The Navy does a lot involved with it. And it's getting college-aged kids interested and aware of this stuff. And they build electric boats, and we volunteer at those events and use our boats for chase boats and patrol boats for that stuff. But it's getting that next generation just cognizant and just aware of the technology and what's possible, because otherwise they wouldn't be exposed to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. I feel like no one my age I know has been on a boat typically. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there. Second to last question. We're almost done. What is your best advice for boat users who might be hesitant to jump into the world of clean fuels? People that are slightly interested, but not sure if they want to take the full leap.
I would say just start with education. Start digesting some of this stuff. We're ramping up our social media. There's a couple other really good ones out there. Justin with Aqua Electric, Bruno the Green Boater, Wayne the Boat Guy. So there's a lot of us trying to spread the word out there. And we're not saying it makes sense in every application, but start thinking about it. And there's times we talk to people and they go out for a ride on a boat and they're like, man, this would fit my needs perfectly. But they otherwise wouldn't have been aware. Obviously, price is the big barrier to entry right now. Some of our boats have a 25 to 50% premium for electric with a third of the range. But that still works for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people out there where money isn't as big of a variable there. For everybody that either hates it or isn't even aware, but just start educating and digesting and thinking about stuff. There are solutions to a lot of this stuff. And it's kind of crazy because there's a lot of downsides to gas boats, and we've touched on like maintenance and the repair side of things, but carbon monoxide poisoning is a very real thing. People forget a blower on a boat after they've filled up, or they have just a fuel leak and the vapors fill in the bilge. And these boats explode all the time. You look up boat fail explosions. I mean, they happen a couple dozen every summer, and people just accept it. They're like, oh yeah, made him a little mistake and people died. And it's like, they're so worried about electric boats, but they're accepting of this. And there's kids that die all the time from exhaust poisoning on the back of these boats. And it's unfortunate, but it really happens. These are the downsides that you've been exposed to, and they just accepting of that. And so they're so hypercritical of the next level of technology, and that they belittle it, and they're so hypercritical of it. And it's like, wait, you're okay with fuel and you're spending a ridiculous amount at the marina. It's super dangerous. You're polluting the water, and you've been accepting of that for a very long time. So be more accepting and aware and start educating yourself about it. Most people are ignorant and not willing to do that aspect of it. And I tell people, before you shout from the rooftops on social media about how bad something is, try a Google search first, just to learn a little bit. That first blurb from Google will answer a lot of your questions.
Yeah, misinformation is definitely really unfortunate too.
And those are the loudest people. It blows my mind.
Definitely. Totally agree. Well, as we sort of wrap up the podcast, I would just like to thank you once again for joining us today. You were great. This was amazing. I was so happy to learn more about the Electrified Marina and all that you guys are doing. And so with that, any last thoughts that you would like to share?
I would just say to follow us on YouTube and any of the social media platforms. We're ramping up our content in terms of the educational side of things. There's this very long adoption curve that's going to happen. And so much of that is education and awareness. And so we just tell people to start spreading the word about it. Most people don't know electric boats exist right now. My target demographic that is a buyer for our boats don't know they exist. It's kind of crazy to say. So we need help spreading the word as much as possible, and look out for us at some of the boat shows and the events we're doing. We've got a handful coming up in the Mid-Atlantic area. The Bay Bridge Boat Show coming up here in a few weeks. The DC Boat Show at the beginning of May. We're going to be in Northern Neck, Irvington area, middle of April. And then who knows where this summer. We've got a lot in the works right now.
That's amazing. Well, everybody go check that out. Check out the social medias. And if I'm ever back in Virginia Beach at home, I'll make sure to stop by.
Oh, please do. Would love to get you out on some boat rides. It'd be awesome.
For sure. Thank you so much, Eric.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Virginia Clean Cities podcast. I'm your host, Sher, and look out for me on new episodes coming soon.